So hello again, everyone. You're very welcome to the second seminar on stage 2 today at the Grad and Graduate Careers Fair. You're all very welcome. So in this particular session, we're going to be chatting to Siobhain from Musgrave, who's the early careers manager there, and CK, who is a careers coach at Dublin Business School. Hello to both of you today.
Morning.
So just quickly before we launch into this session, as with the first seminar, if you have any questions you would like to ask our panelists, please do put them in the chat box below, and time permitting, we'll put as many of them as possible at the end. You can also upvote a question if someone has already asked one you were thinking of. So we'll kick off with you, CK, if that's all right. And this talk is, it's going to be all about, starting your graduate career and, that journey and, advice for people. So from a student's perspective, when do you think students should start seriously thinking about their career path and who they want to work for? Like, I'm assuming it's not in the last minute and final year when you get your degree. So when should they start really thinking about who they want to work for and maybe what they want to do for a living as well?
So when I was reading the questions, right, so it's really interesting to me because just depending on what's happening so Siobhain, you'd know that there's certain dates that you need to have for internships, graduate programs and things like that. I think the most ideal time is after first year. So have that first year where you're enjoying getting involved in any and everything. But second year, when you're going into it, you should have an idea in mind of there's a handful of companies that I would like to work for. So I'm going to attend any talks, CV clinics, anything like that. So for instance, if I was interested in going towards the retail sector and interested toward going Musgraves, I would be kind of thinking about it in second year. So then I would be searching for any networking events or any types of, career events or anything like that Musgraves is hosting. I would also ensure to kind of liaise with the careers coaches or careers, just be like, these are the companies that we're interested in hearing about, and do we have any representatives? That way you're actually making the careers, your career service aware and familiar with the companies that you want to hear from. And ideally that will give you an idea. So in second year, I'm talking to Siobhain. I've told her about all of my hopes and dreams, aspirations, and what I want to get out of life and how Musgrave's going to help me with that. And Siobhain is going to help me in regards of giving me information. Okay, we need you to have really strong communication skills. We need to see some extracurricular activity, so your involvement in societies. We need to see leadership potential. So whatever, let's say, top 5 skills that Siobhain would think is the appropriate ones for Musgraves for the graduate programs or even for any internships, that is essentially where you're going to be building it in second year, because you're speaking to someone who knows, and then you can also have enough time to build up and develop these skill sets. Because I think sometimes students misinterpret development and think that it's something that could be happening over like 30 days or do a quick course or a cert. It's not that easy. Leadership, you need to really step into it and be comfortable. You need to be, happy to take the lead, happy to solve problems, happy to make the horrible decisions or have to have those uncomfortable conversations. So ideally it would be after the summer, right before second year, have just that short list, and then you can just start getting to know companies, and then you'll be able to kind of see what's really out there and what's kind of suited for you.
Yeah, that's perfect. And just from the employer side of things then, Siobhain, is there such thing as maybe too early to get in contact with you if someone's in first year, or would you encourage that? It's a good sign if you're a student, when you're in first year. I'm thinking, I like your organization. Can you tell me more about it?
I don't see it about a negative thing. I think it depends on how you contact the company. Because again, you just need to be conscious, I suppose, in terms of if there is like an early careers contact there, then if you're going to be contacting with outside of a formal program, then it's quite likely there could be a lot of queries coming in. So we will more than likely direct you to, okay, well, have you considered connecting with some of our people on LinkedIn? Have you seen the types of programs that we offer? So if we're going out and saying we have a particular range of programs or offers, realistically, we're probably not going to have a huge amount of opportunities around that. So I would just say, try to tailor your approach insofar as possible. Now, if you have connections within the company, or you know people are there, or you want to make a connection via LinkedIn and do it that way, then that's a good way to approach an employer as well as part of that. I think really, Jen, I would agree with everything that CK is saying there, just in relation to really, and I strongly recommend connecting with your career service, because your career service do have so much information around that. I'm going to fly the flag as well a small bit, just for the people who won't be so career focused, because I was definitely one of those when I was in college. I didn't have a notion about graduate programs or any of those kind of things. Don't panic if you're in your final year and all of a sudden you're kind of, oh God, what do I have to do? your life is not going to be determined by the outcome of whether you get a graduate program or not. And I'm here to talk about graduate programs. We have one. It's a fantastic program with the Graduate Employer of the Year. But we also have a lot of people who came into our business outside of a graduate program. And it's important for people as well to understand that, yes, it's really important, and it's a fantastic opportunity when you're in college to get, particularly to take advantage of the resources from the career services in particular, and the links with industry, to be able to explore all of that. And we strongly recommend you do that. I'm not saying that. If you haven't, don't panic, but just certainly explore and look at the things that interest you. So if you have Instagram, for example, and you're following loads of food trends, then maybe a career in food industry could be something for you. Could be marketing, could be finance, but you want to work in that type of industry. Then that can also help you to shape in terms of what type of employers or industry things that you need to be looking at as well. And then to be able to reach out appropriately to people in those areas and trying to establish those contacts. I went slightly off tangent there, Pierce, I know, but I just think it's really, I think there's so many fantastic resources available while you're in college, but I just know there's so many students out there. The people who get on to the people who will succeed no matter what. And they'll be the really focused ones. They'll come in and they'll come into the graduate programs. It's probably for the people who aren't necessarily aware of the resources that are there through different circumstances that maybe occur, or just, I know when I started college, I was like, yay. There's nothing about anything else outside of enjoying myself as part of that. So I think we just wanted to say to people that it's never too late. And just to make sure that when you do get to that point when you're looking seriously about it, then right, you have the resources there through your career services, or connecting through to companies in an appropriate way, to via LinkedIn or through their websites.
Yeah, exactly. And just be remiss of me not to mention, the new Grad Ireland platform as well, is to connect to, I'll get the plug in there quickly, to connect with employers as well. And it's brilliant, Siobhain, because it leads me on, nicely into my next question, which I'll throw back to you, CK, if that's all right, which is, as Siobhain mentions there, it can be very intimidating for someone maybe who's not really career focused. Everyone knows people who, in leaving cert, there's someone who wants to be an accountant. That's what they want to do. They know the company they want to work for. They go through college, they do their finance degree, and they get the job. And they're like, well, they know what they want to do. So what advice do you have for someone who's in fourth year and is maybe thinking, and maybe say they thought they wanted to be, working in the finance area, but as they've gone through college, like, you know what, I wouldn't mind a change of sector, or this doesn't suit my personality as much as I thought it would. What advice would you have someone who might be panicking, who's in fourth year and is thinking, actually, this isn't the sector I want to work in now?
Yeah. Do you want to know, it's so funny because that's exactly where I was when I completed my degree. So I can definitely kind of align myself with this. The first thing is, don't panic. So the one thing that I've realized over I've been working for the last 10 years. I'm not going to let you guess my age, but yeah, I've been working for the last 10 years. And what I've realized is that almost every experience that I have I've been able to transfer it into my next job, into my next job. And the one thing that I've always been focused on in every job that I've done is that my focus is on people. So maybe we should stop trying to identify, where do I fit in when it comes to the corporate ladder? Where do I fit in my job, rather than focus on what you love to do and try to turn that into a career. And I think that's what we ideally need to do, is that if you love working with people, then it doesn't really matter what type of capacity you're working with them. As long as you're working with people, you'll be happy with that. If you know exactly what kind of work environment you feel as if you're going to succeed in, being able to identify that is so important, because this eventually leads you to the thing of let's say corporate world. So, the suits, is this where I'm suited for? And it's like, no, I don't actually fit into the environment altogether. So where else can I look for? What other areas and industries could I go into? And it's more or less focus on a skill set. So I removed that, what do I want to be, or what job am I going to go into? And I focused more on, what skills would I like to develop? So if you have an end goal, and I'm sure everybody is, I want to be a CEO, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be someone in charge who makes the right decisions. If that's who it is that you aspire to be, or even if you just find a role model, somebody that you admire. So mine would be Stephen Bartlett. He's a CEO of Social Chain, and it's because of the fact that he emphasizes about work-life balance. He emphasizes about not to be in a rush at 18 to get to the CEO level. And he also kind of gives you the real unfiltered raw, what it actually is. And that's essentially what it is. So more focus on the skill set development, focus on okay, so if I go into this role, this is the areas that I'm going to develop further. And that will actually help me to get onto my next job, because that helps you to break it down a little bit more. But it helps you not to view it as, if I don't make the right choice, my entire career is going down the drain. It helps you just to look at it more in the sense of, I'm learning and I'm actually going to find, because Pierce, I'm a career coach. I studied psychology. I did not think ever that I'd be sitting here speaking to Grad Ireland the amount of times that I have about career coaching. I thought for sure that I was going to be a world famous clinical psychologist, you know, that kind of way. That's where my mind was focused. And once I let that go, I was able to just enjoy the moment. And then the career, the role that was suited for me found me when the time was right.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice. I mean, I thought I would be a professional football player with 2 Premier League titles under my belt at this point, but look, here we are.
See what I'm saying?
And I think it's really good advice there, Sika, about that, you know, focusing on your skill set more than maybe the specific degree subject. So Siobhain, if we can just throw this to you and maybe talk about, you know, the roles on offer in, you know, through the Musgrave graduate program specifically. I don't think graduates realize how far the degree can actually take them. You know, if you have a finance degree, doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and work in finance. That opens up other doors for you as well. So you can maybe talk about the different roles within, you know, within Musgrave for graduates and the different degree disciplines that can actually, you know, go in and, you know, work for you guys.
Yeah, of course. And I think the thing about Musgrave is, I think people don't necessarily understand the size and scale of our business as well. So we would have 11 brands across retail and wholesale. So many people would be familiar with the likes of Super Value, Centra, Frank and Honest Coffee, LaRousse Foods, Donnybrook Fair. We actually own all of those brands. And what we do is that we actually support them through functions like marketing, IT, finance, supply chain, all those different areas. And that's where we bring our graduates in. So our graduates come into those specific areas. So for example, buying would be one of our most popular programs. So what I would say to anyone who's interested in coming and working with us, you just do need to be aware that our programs are sort of set up in such a way that they're going to develop you for a specific type of role within our business. So when I talk about buying, you will have 2 12-month rotations in that, but they will be within buying teams, one in retail and one in wholesale. So it's not something that you're going to go in and get 6 months in finance, 6 months in supply chain. So I suppose just for people to be aware of that upfront, so that they understand when they're applying for a role, it's to be dedicated to that area. So there is a certain amount of being sure about, this is an area I want to go into before you actually apply, because you're not necessarily going to get the opportunity to, if you apply for the marketing role, you're not going to be working in the finance team, for example. So just to make a call around that. And again, we would offer roles for graduates from any degree background in the likes of buying and supply chain. So it doesn't matter if you've done law, if you've done languages, if you've done politics, psychology, whatever it may be, we'll take all degree disciplines for that specific area. There are some areas where we look for more specific academic criteria, and that's based on the type of role we're looking for. So the likes of our IT roles, for example, particularly our cybersecurity, we're looking for specific criteria around that. Our marketing program, for example, would be one that people, it's the most popular one we have every single year. It's the one we get the most applications for. So we have said, look, you do need to have a marketing degree or marketing qualification for that area. So in terms of my advice, what I would say to you, and this applies to all graduate roles or any role that you go to, read the job description carefully, okay? You don't need to be able to do the job now. We will teach you how to do the job, but you need to understand what is involved in the job. You need to understand what's involved in the industry. So we're hiring you because of the potential and also possibly because of your academic background. So that's sufficient for us to be able to say, yeah, we think that's going to be the right person for that. But if you're a person who likes a really structured day, likes to know exactly what you're going to be doing at every hour, and you like to be able to mark things off like that, retail is probably not the best place for you to work, because you could have a plan and something will just go out the window because an emergency's come up, you've got to deal with that. And it's fantastic for people who love that kind of environment. So my advice to anyone is particularly looking for the roles that we have, and we have a fantastic range available for 2022, from buying to finance to commercial food leadership, which is a new program that we're after developing. There's marketing, there's IT, there's insight and innovation, which is a really exciting and different role as well, as also supply chain from an operations perspective. So read through the job description. There's a shortened version and there's a longer version. It'll tell you exactly what we need from an academic background. And if you are somebody who's applying for, if you're applying for a marketing role without a marketing degree, you need to bear in mind, we're not going to be able to progress you for not meeting the criteria. It's a harsh truth, but if there's a criteria there, it's there for a reason. So we would encourage you to look at the areas and say, yep, do you want my degree? I can see there isn't a specific criteria. I could see myself potentially going into that. I have a sense of what the industry is involved. Speak to people today. We've got loads of grad colleagues who are available today, for example, to book time with them, have a chat with them to understand about their experiences, and make an informed decision. Say, okay, right, informed as well as you can. You never know until you're actually in it. But we're fairly confident we've got a robust selection process that will make sure that we get the right people for our business, and it's those people who have a passion for our industry, because they've been involved in some shape or form with our brands, or they understand the kind of food industry or that background, or they're really passionate about getting involved in it. They're displaying the competencies that we look for, and we have the competencies up on our website. So there's absolutely no excuse for anyone to say, like, I don't know what you're looking for. So go to our selection process, and it's all laid out in terms of exactly what we look for. So we are doing our best to be as transparent as possible in terms of what we look for within our graduates, and making those resources available. So for anyone who's going to make an application for any program or any job, look at the resources, read through the information, and make your decision on that basis.
Yeah, that's all.
Like co-sign to that, because that's literally everything I say in my workshops. Every time I have a conversation with a student, I'm like, Siobhain, can you just get that on like a poster or something? We can post it everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And that's why these opportunities are great, you know, for students and graduates to hear from someone senior within an organization, because maybe graduates mightn't have associated all those different roles within Musgrave access, from, like, you know, the finance, the IT side of things, the buying. Suddenly people are like, oh, I didn't realize that I could get into this brand through my degree, which I didn't know applied that, which I always think is really, really good. Unfortunately, it'd be remiss of me not to mention the pandemic, although thankfully we're coming towards the end of it now. But CK, how has it affected, because obviously, look, you deal with students on a daily basis. How has it affected them? Do you mean, what kind of questions they come in and asking you, you know, specifically related to the pandemic? And, you know, do you have any advice for maybe people who are still uncertain about how it might affect their graduate career going forward? I know that might be a big question.
It's, do you know what? A lot of the questions that I've been getting from students is more, how do I prepare for this new world of working that we're being told to look forward to? So, like, we know that there's been an advancement in technology. A lot of the things that have come through now weren't supposed to happen for another 5-10 years, but the pandemic accelerated that, and that's a big thing. So tech is playing a huge part in how we're going to work, and I think students just need to get comfortable with it, just getting comfortable with technology. And because the reason why I think it's a lot of fear surrounds how do we use technology, or Siobhain, it might have been for you the same as you. You're Musgraves, you're retail, you're dealing with food. How does technology factor into your job? You know, pieces like that. And I think that's what it is. It's just people forget, or they can't see how technology is going to be, how it impacts where they're working, and students are a little bit nervous about that. So a lot of questions has been about, like, how do I prepare for that? And my one piece of advice is stay on top of industry news. So if you have a specific industry that you're interested in, make sure that you have Google Alerts set up, make sure that you're following industry leaders in that specific sector on LinkedIn, that you're reading articles, anything that they have putting up there, any company updates, because companies are also really great for putting up information about, you know, any changes that are coming on board. PwC, Amazon, Musgrave is great for it as well. You've got resources on there. So that's one of the things that's there. The second thing as well that I know a lot of students are kind of a little bit nervous about is there going to be any jobs? This is this huge thing, is that, like, oh, the jobs are gone now. And it's like, they're not gone. They've just changed. They've evolved. We're at that stage. We're that generation where the jobs evolve. So if you go back to, like, the Industrial Revolution, do you know, that kind of way, factories coming in, things like that. This is like, what, the fourth, I think they said it was like the fourth revolution, technology advancements. It's nothing more than just keeping ahead, staying ahead, in the sense of making sure you've kept up to date with what's coming out there, what's trending. Develop yourself, set time aside as well. So for instance, one of the things that I'm going to be focused on just going forward is just in regards of using apps, you know, building an app when it comes to careers, how to access it, how to make things a little bit more easier for students. That's something I'm going to be focusing on specifically for the careers sector, because I know students, we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, everything is fast, it's easy, it's fun. So apps are really the way to go. So that is a focus that we should be having. And that's essentially what I would say to students is, stop panicking about trying to be everything that the CEO of, the early 2000s had, because the CEO of the 2030 is completely different. We don't even know what that's going to look like. So stop focusing so much on what we don't know what it's going to look like. Focus on the now. So what can you develop now? The one thing that you know is that technology is advancing, and technology is going to be a part of your job. So how can you see where technology can basically just make things more efficient, make things kind of more cost effective? That's essentially what you need to do. And the other thing as well is just because I know sponsorships and things like that always comes up, because we're in a very different way now. So that's still regulations, stuff like that. So you just need to stay on to the INIS website, keep up to date with that as well. And don't be afraid to ask companies, do they offer sponsorship? How do they go about it if they do? Because you don't know, you won't ever find out any information if you don't ask. That's essentially it. If you sit there thinking that no one knows the answer to this, so I'm not going to ask it, you're never going to know the answer yourself.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I can't really add to that. I mean, all the information all the information is out there. Like, so even from an employer point of view, I mean, like you said, Siobhain, they'd be disappointed if you didn't know the company's values or the types of roles available, because it is all there. It's not as if it's hidden somewhere and you're trying to trick people. All the information before you apply is there. I did have a couple more questions, but no one really wants to hear what I have to ask you. So I'm going to take the questions from the floor now. We have absolutely loads coming in. So thanks very much. And there's a really interesting one here, which is it ever, and I'll throw this one to you, Siobhain, which is it ever too late to apply for a graduate role? Someone's saying is if they graduated a year, 2 years ago, what I mean, and they haven't found a graduate program, but suddenly one has now come up with they like, is it ever too late to apply, or is it, can they still get in there?
I think it depends on the employer. I suppose the other thing to bear in mind, I suppose, it is that graduate programs are typically positioned for somebody going into their first or second role. So it is, to all intents and purposes, it is an entry level role at some shape or form. That's very structured one around development. So once you're okay with that decision and you know that the employer will accept it, then there's absolutely no problem. We don't have a time limit in terms of graduation. So we have had people who've applied for our program and been successful who would have graduated maybe 2 years previously and come on to that. We have had people who have they've gone back to college, they've come back and they've been successful in getting onto our program. So we've had a lot of different examples of people who've come to our business in that shape. And that, again, we understand people want to get different experiences. So we're not going to shut somebody down just because they haven't graduated in the appropriate year. But I would advise that they would look at the employers that they're looking at to make sure they don't have any restrictions around that.
Yeah, that's just really, really good practical advice as well. I mean, if you're thinking of taking maybe the year out, see if that's going to hamper you next year when you apply for the graduate program you wanted. I mean, again, just do the research. And then, Sigur's question here about showing passion for an industry specifically. So I think people maybe find it easy to, demonstrate skills or personality traits and maybe on a CV or, through an interview. But how, for example, say you have a passion for retail, how do you demonstrate that? And or maybe if you're in, say, second or third year, how do you go about developing that passion now so that in, fourth year, you can then demonstrate that to employers?
There are so many platforms that are out there where you can showcase your skills, your passion, whatever you're interested in. And the most important thing is if it's retail, so I always say it like this. So if you look at the likes of Instagram, the Instagram platform is built more for people with the visuals, so like pictures, clothes, types of fashion, accessories, things like that. If that's what you're interested in, a lot of those retailers are already going to be on Instagram. It's more in the sense of find out, number one, the retailers that you're trying to attract onto your profile or your portfolio, what platforms are they on? And then get onto those platforms and start putting up things that you like. So when you say like demonstrate your passion, I'm not expecting you to go out there and let's say if you're into retail and showcase that like your business plan for your own like boutique or shop or something where you can sell your product. I'm more or less talking about what is it about retail that inspires you? What is it about retail that actually gets you excited? And this could be a number of articles that you could find. It could be how maybe it might be like how does a product go from pure ingredients to onto the shelf? You might be interested in the process of that. Talk about it, open up the conversation as well, which is a really big thing. Personal branding is something that each and every one of us need to be responsible for when it comes to our LinkedIn and everything else. Companies have specific people who are set on working on that branding, but you yourself, you know what you want, you know what you're interested in, you know where your passion truly lies and where you want to go. But the rest of the world does not. So how are they supposed to know, oh, that actually might be a really great collaboration? this is where you need to put yourself out there. And this is where I'm saying there is so many platforms. You've got I mean, I've seen products on TikTok that I would have never in a million years been like, there's no way. Like, how is that even on TikTok? Like, that doesn't even make sense. But they found a way to put it on there because they know that their target audience, their demographic, is using TikTok. And that's essentially what you need to do. Just find out where your target audience is. What do you want to say? And more than anything, and I think this is the scariest part of anything. When anyone looks at personal branding or LinkedIn or posting for the first time, it's like, what do I say? Anything like that. Reshare an article. Go onto Siobhain's LinkedIn, reshare an article, put a couple of words of what your thoughts are, and invite everybody else in your network to comment the same. And now there you have it. You have a link into the employer that you are aspiring to work for one day, and you're talking about the process. Maybe you have a great idea, and that's a conversation can just start in the comment section. I can't tell you how many times I've started a conversation in the comment section, and it's actually turned out to be a very fruitful collaboration of something that I never would have thought, like, oh my God. And the most important thing, just be yourself. Don't try to be Molly May. Don't try to be like the Love Island girl. Don't try to be anybody else but yourself. Authenticity is the only way that you will attract a target audience that's interested in what you're selling and what you're buying as well. All right. That's my personal branding tip of the day.
Oh, that's great, because that first seminar was actually on personal branding as well, and that all feeds nicely into that. So you were obviously watching earlier on, CK. So look, we've only a few minutes left here, so Siobhain, I'm going to throw a final question to you, if that's all right, which is about real practical tips for someone who maybe now has listened to that and is like, you know what, I'm going to apply. I have the qualifications, I have the passion. I'm going to apply for one of the streams in the Musgrave graduate programs. What practical advice would you have for someone to maybe stand out or to really make their application strong? And I realize now you're going to tell this now to everyone watching, so then everyone's going to go and do it. So maybe might not make them stand out as much. But what real practical tips do you have for someone to maybe make their application stand out and to make it really, really strong?
I mean, realistically, in terms of our process, the place where you're going to stand out is when you come to the video interview or when you come to the assessment center. So our application process it's fairly straightforward in that once you've researched the roles and you've decided which is the one that you prefer, then it's actually on our application form, we ask your first preference and your second preference. 99% of the time we'll go with your first preference. The only time we'll look at the second preference is if you don't meet the academic criteria for your first preference. So just to bear that in mind when you go through. Once you submit your application form, you're going to be invited to complete online tests. The best you can do to stand out there is just to dedicate the time to do the online tests and to do them to the best of your ability. So there's no special tricks. It's literally just make sure that you do the email, make sure you do the assessments in the time indicated. And we have hints and tips on our website if you look under the selection process, and it gives you guidance there in terms of how you can, and it's even a link for you to do some practice assessments if you wish to do so. So that's available for people as well. And if you're successful, so there is, because we do have large volumes of applications, then we have a cutoff point for the assessments. So you have to reach a certain benchmark for those assessments to be invited to the video interview stage. If you're invited to the video interview, then this is the opportunity for you to show a bit of who you are. Now, the questions you're going to be asked is going to be a competency-based type question. If you're not sure what a competency-based type question is, have a look at our website on the selection process, talk to your careers advice team to understand, because they have loads of experience to be able to share that with you. And then the question, you'll have one question to prepare in advance. The other two questions will be unseen in the day. Take your time and respond with a real example. And if you, ahead of doing that, what I would suggest you do is even just to go through our own corporate website, so musgravegroup.com, understand who we are, our brands, what we stand for. But realistically, if you're applying for our program, you should have a sense of who we are and you understand what our industry is about. So there shouldn't be any massive surprises. We're not looking for annual reports or anything like that on that side. And then the next stage really is going to be the assessment center. So when you get to the assessment center stage, you're going to be there with a group of people. The maximum group of people will be 12. Our assessment centers are very small. And they're also based on the area that you're going for. So if you're going for finance, then you're going to be with other finance people for that role. The best advice I can give you there, apart from looking at the website for hints and tips, is participate. We can only assess you on what we see on the day, and you could be absolutely amazing. But if you're not participating, we can't tell. So you really have to participate in all the activities. We have 3 different activities as part of our assessment center, and you could do an absolutely amazing interview. But if you don't participate in the group activities, then it's going to be a challenge for us to be able to say you're meeting the competency that we're looking for or not. So that's what I would just say to anybody. And I know it can be more challenging if you're more introverted. Surprisingly enough, I'm actually an introvert myself, but there is a piece where you have to practice just speaking up in group situations. And again, look to your career services teams. Some of them run different mock assessment centers or opportunities for you to get involved. And even if it's killing you, just speak up, participate, because if you don't, then we can't give you the benefit of the doubt. We just have to say, okay, look, unfortunately on the day you haven't participated, we don't know if you're competent or not in that area. So that's probably the best advice I can give to people from that side.
Yeah, no, I always like to get, in these sessions, I think it's always very beneficial to get real, proper, practical advice from someone who's actually making the decisions, do you mean, on how you progress through it. So I always think it's really, really good. So that's all we have time for on the second session today. Thanks so much, Siobhain and Ntsaoki, really, really appreciate it. That's thanks on behalf of me and obviously everyone watching as well. So just a quick reminder, if you join halfway through the session or you just want to, rewatch again and jot down some hints and tips, it will be available to watch on demand right here shortly after we close this session. The next session on this stage will be at 25 to 1. That's going to be with Leah Jansen from Bank of Ireland, and she's going to be talking about their graduate programs and the ins and outs of that. So make sure to log in for that one as well. But until then, we'll see you all then. And thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.